Hello and welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, the makers of the Fallout Lore, the Storyteller web series, and Hidden History. I'm Charles Battersby, your host, and with me is my co-host, Austin Horrigan.
Hello, everyone, and with me is our second guest co-host,
Celebrity guest villain.
Kyle, co-owner of Shoddycast. All hail to Kyle.
Salutations.
Our talented and downright handsome boss.
You know it. No, wait, that's the other brother. I don't do anything.
Well, he's on vacation, so now you have to take up the mantle of handsome as well.
That's true. I gotta do everything, God.
Now you're the smart one, the charming one, and the dashing one. All right, so this week we have a pretty big news week because Quakecon was a few days ago. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so there may be more news that breaks between now and the time that you're listening to this podcast. But we've got a bunch of really cool stuff that was officially confirmed or suddenly revealed over the last week. And one of the things that people have been wondering about is companions. How are they going to work in the new game? Who are the new companions? Is anybody returning? And at Quakecon, we were confirmed that, yes, there's going to be a dog. Yes, we already knew that. Mr. Handy, who was shown in the E3 trailer, he will be following you around as a companion. Preston Garvey, who was shown in the Microsoft E3 video, he's going to be a companion. And there's a new character that hasn't been shown to the public yet, but the lucky bastards that were at QuakeCon got to see Piper, who's a female reporter that works out of Boston and runs a local newspaper in Boston. So guys, what do you think about the revelation of these 4 companions, along with the fact that there are going to be 8 more companions?
When I first read about Piper, I was like, a newspaper? But it's like, of course a newspaper, because newspapers are rich in the lore of the American Revolution, which this game seems to be taking a lot of inspiration from. So I'm kind of excited to see. I'm presuming that this Piper character is going to be a pivotal, activist of some kind. So that's pretty cool.
All right, so about Piper, she has a newspaper, and people had newspapers before we had electricity, so maybe she's running an old pre-war Revolutionary War era printing press that she's got her hands on somehow. So the other characters that we have, well, we've already known about the dog. We've got a returning robot. There was a robot in Fallout 3. There was a Mr. Gusty, the military version of the Mr. Handy, who would follow you around depending on your alignment choices. The guy that sold you Sarge would sometimes tell you Sarge just doesn't like the looks of you, and then you couldn't get the robot, and the player had no real clue as to how to recruit him. But in Fallout 4, you will have the option of getting a robot. You'll also get Preston Garvey. So what do you guys think about Preston? We saw him in a brief trailer at the Microsoft E3 event, where he's the leader of a group of Minutemen.
Me. I've never been one for I've never been one for companions. I always like to kind of go it alone. So I guess we'll talk about the whole lone wanderer thing later, but I'm glad that's in there. But yeah, me, companions, they just get in the way. And I don't know, I guess Skyrim kind of ruined companions for me. Because, sworn to carry your burdens.
I was the same way. But he seems cool, like as a character. He's got a laser musket and a cool hat. I'll be romancing him later.
Okay, so that's another issue. You can romance any of your human companions. They were quick to, they started out by saying you can romance any of the characters, and then they were very quick to point out it's only the human characters. You can't romance the robots or dog meat. As of this writing, there'll no doubt be mods made for that the second that the game comes out. But you can romance anyone, male or female, regardless of what your character's gender is. So what do you guys think about this?
Well, it seems to be pretty similar to what they did in Skyrim, though. I think the one thing I do kind of like better, Skyrim, all the companions and people that you could marry just kind of seemed like really one-dimensional, flat, uninteresting people. So at least here, it seems like they're actually providing somewhat dynamic people to romance, though. Like, as far as it as a mechanic, I'm always very skeptical of romances because they're always kind of I've yet to play a game or a romance wasn't at least a little dumb, if not entirely dumb.
Well, bang, okay.
And when it comes to this kind of, romance your companions, I do feel like BioWare is far ahead of all of the other companies that do similar themes. And in Dragon Age 2, that was the first game where they were really open that almost everyone in your party is bisexual and cool on interracial romance. So in that game, it did have the sense that, your character is just this pansexual, compulsively orgasmic character just in this world of horny bisexuals. And, they were trying to be inclusive by saying, you can romance whoever you want to, and, you can, do what you want, but it also just created the sense that, the land of Ferelden is party kingdom, and, everybody's getting with everybody else. And so with Fallout 4, they are going to need to, temper this sense that you can bang anyone you want. And just part of that is the idea that your character is so awesome that everybody wants to be with them. And then part of it is the sense that, hey, everybody's up for grabs. So these two concepts need to be balanced.
What happens in the wasteland stays in the wasteland.
I don't know. I'm never really super excited about romances, except for Mjol the Lioness. She's my one true love.
Oh no, I had to go with Ayala the Huntress. She was my little lesbian werewolf girlfriend and wife throughout my adventure. Yeah, actually, you mentioned Kyle about the Lone Wanderer. Todd Howard, in his speech during Quakecon, talked about how you will have special perks if you don't want any companions at all. And in Fallout New Vegas, there was an option added on if you pursued certain story options during the Lonesome Road DLC. You would get a bonus perk that gave you additional, I think, damage and experience points if you had no companions at all. So with Fallout 4, it seems like they're going to have something like that, where if you just don't have any companions at all, you benefit somehow from that to compensate for the lack of pals backing you up.
I mean, we've slowly gotten confirmation, but it seems like QuakeCon was the first real confirmation that they are really revamping the way the skill systems are going to be done.
Yes. In the old games, you would get a set of skill points each level and could assign them however you want, and you would get a special perk every 3 levels or more depending on what your traits were. And now, Austin, tell us a little bit about the new version that they've just announced.
Well, the way it seems to work is, luckily for people who didn't like the Skyrim model, it's not following the Skyrim where you learn by doing. The way it's going to work is you pick your special points, like you would in the past. However many points you may have in something like Strength will determine how many perks you can choose when you level up. And so, like, if you have a whole bunch in Strength, you can pick from however many more Strength perks, and everything is going to be perk and special based, which I kind of like personally. I think it's a kind of a nice streamlining without dumbing it down too much, and it still keeps that core special and makes that special in a way.
So they are completely removing skills, like that's pretty much confirmed. It's kind of like melded together with the perks and the special. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's going to be perks and special. Yeah.
Some of the things that are skills now are going to end up being perks. So you'll be able to choose science as a perk rather than everybody having a science skill, or sneak as a perk.
We can choose more than one perk per level we get?
They said you'll get 1 perk per level.
And then depending, the ones that will be available to you will be based on how many points you have in your given special skill.
Okay. Well, if I'm honest, I hated having to put points in the skills. It took too much figuring out. I guess it makes the choices you make in perks, I guess, more pertinent, and you're really going to be thinking about it every time you level up because it is going to be so important, and you're going to have a pretty limited amount of perks you can choose. At least from what I understand. So, and also like just picking your special, like you're going to really be concentrating on what you're going to be putting points into. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people min-maxing and they'll be like, oh, you should be choosing this and this and this. And to be honest, I'm probably going to be following what they're going to say because I like to min-max myself. Most likely, I'll be wanting to play, especially since they've apparently been working a lot on the stealth system in the game. I've been wanting to play an actual usable stealth character in the Fallout game, which we haven't really been able to do in 3 or New Vegas, so that'll be cool. I would even like to see more emphasis on melee weapons, which apparently they're also doing, so maybe strength and agility, maybe? And of course luck, all the way to 10.
All right, so we've also been told that in conversations, you'll be able to have conversations with 2 characters instead of just having that NPC stand in front of you with the lines of text under him. There's going to be camera angles and scenes that are more like a movie or more like a BioWare game.
Man, I'm going to be jealous because I have this feeling they're just going to start talking to each other and leave me out of the conversation completely. And I'll just be standing there twiddling my thumbs, be like, come on, guys, I'm right here. And they're talking about me and stuff, and it'll be terrible.
That's a pretty common thing to happen in video games. Like, you have your Half-Life 2, like Gordon Freeman is just standing there listening to people exposition around him, and they're like, oh, you can, we need to give him something to do. Could you go kill that army over there? While us, the grown-ups, have this conversation.
Yeah, I do like seeing Bethesda more openly emulating BioWare. I like to see these companies as having a healthy competition with each other, and at times I worry that maybe each of them is trying to not do the other guy's shtick, and that that's actually limiting both companies. That neither of them wants to step on the other company's toes, or that they want to maintain their individuality. And maybe Bethesda doesn't want to emulate BioWare too much, even in the things that BioWare does better. So I'm happy to see them implementing this system. All right, so one of our viewers captured a screenshot which shows the name Dogmeat above the dog in the game. So you will either be able to name your dog Dogmeat, or it will be named Dogmeat by default. And one of the interesting things that I learned is that the dog in the game is actually based on a real dog that's owned by one of the former developers at Bethesda. So the dog's real name is River. And if you stalk the nice woman that owns River, you can see pictures of the real dog. So this is a fun little insider reference. Bethesda and some of the other Fallout developers, Interplay and Obsidian and Black Isle, they would cram the games with little inside references to the development team. And I love seeing a real dog owned by someone on the team being in the game.
Does that mean that this person's real dog went around like ripping people's throats out all the time? They went on camping trips, and then suddenly wherever they went camping, like the murder rate skyrocketed for the weekend.
Unexplained dog attacks happening. I sense a Head in History episode coming out of it. So so the Twitter said this is confirmation that the dog is dog meat, but not like the dog meat from, what was it, 3?
Yes, this dog is a German Shepherd. It's an entirely different species than what any of the previous dog meats have been.
I'm just assuming you'll be able to name it, and they thought it'd be cute if they named it
Yes.
dog meat.
That was kind of my feeling too.
Okay, now some other big news that came out this week was Fallout Shelter is finally coming to Android. It'll be out on August 13th. Okay, and not only is it coming to Android, but they're also going to do a new update where you'll get a Mr. Handy, who's defined as a premium character. You're getting new enemies and new events, including adorable little cartoon Deathclaws will come and kill all your little cartoon people. All right, so there's also a new anthology edition of all the existing Fallout games that were available for PC. It doesn't include the console-only Brotherhood of Steel game, but it includes Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, 3, New Vegas, and all their DLC.
And it comes in a freaking mini nuke.
Right, so this raises the question of, is the mini nuke case going to be worth it for $50 for people that already own all of the games already? Yeah, you can get the original trilogy. You can get any one of them for they're like $10 on Steam and GOG, but they're always on the big annual sales. And in fact, GOG.com was giving away all 3 of them for free. at one point. Although I will say the Steam version does have some Steam unique features for the original Fallout that seem to make it more compatible with modern operating systems, whereas GOG.com, they include little downloads of soundtracks and art books. So both of the major digital distributors are fine choices. We're not endorsing either.
I'd say, okay, like if you really wanted the mini nuke and you even if you owned all of them, like that's a judgment call that you have to make, like whether or not it's worth it to you. But like if you didn't own, I'd say like 2 or 3 of these games, that's not a bad value considering you'd be getting the whole bunch plus an awesome container to put up as a conversation piece. So it's not actually that bad of a deal, because if you buy Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition and New Vegas Ultimate Edition without it being on sale, that's already like, I think like $20 to $30, something like that. So it's, you're already almost there. But for me, I already own all of them except for Tactics, so it would not even be remotely worth it.
All right, and now it's time for a weekly segment that we call Artsy Smartsy Stuff, where we look at the literary and film influences behind the Fallout series. And one of the earliest post-nuclear, post-apocalyptic stories that I found is Earth Abides. Now, it was published in 1949, and it was released after nuclear bombs existed, but this is a post-apocalyptic world that doesn't use the nuclear concept. In Earth Abides, it's about a biological plague, a naturally occurring plague, that wipes out humanity except for very small pockets of people. So it's a novel. As far as I know, it's never been adapted into another medium. So it's something to hunt down and read. It's a really good project, and I've always lamented that they never actually adapted it into anything. And the premise behind this is that all the humans die, but it's a relatively peaceful and non-destructive die-off. So human cities and all the things that humanity has made, they're still here, but there's no one to maintain it. And a great deal of the story is what happens to cities and roads and vehicles when no one is around to maintain them. And one of the things about Earth Abides that's really relevant to Fallout is just how quickly everything stops working in humanity's world. That the protagonist is a young man at the beginning, and it follows him until he's an old man, and we see a couple of generations grow up in this time. And in the Fallout world, there's a lot of things that still work that probably wouldn't work 80 years or 200 years after the apocalypse. That ammunition starts to degrade. If you have a box of ammunition sitting around your house, you're probably not going to be able to fire it 200 years later. And there's food never seems to go bad in the Fallout world, and and even though people are drinking out of toilets, it's still somehow the pipes and reservoirs and power lines still in some capacity can work. And so in Earth Abides, they go really directly into, a single broken, leaky pipe in a major city would drain the reservoir to the point that running water would stop working. That, roads and bridges will, no longer be passable after a few decades. And even if someone goes through the effort of maintaining and restoring cars, that you can only keep them working for a few decades after the apocalypse, just because the raw components behind them will slowly degrade over decades. And in the Fallout world, we don't really see that. There's a lot of pre-war stuff that's just miraculously still usable 200 years later, even though the Nuka-Cola is still warm and stale, but still somehow the 200-year-old bottle caps are still adhered on, and the junk food is still edible. So Earth Abides goes in and out of publication. You can probably find a new copy of it somewhere, but if not, it should be really easy to find on Amazon or used bookstores. So it's something to grab for a slightly different take on the post-apocalypse, and it's particularly remarkable because it's a non-atomic apocalypse set right after World War II. And next week on Artsy Smartsy Stuff, we've talked about this a couple times on the podcast, but we're going to go in depth with it next week. A Boy and His Dog. We'll be discussing yes, it was a movie. It was a short story with a couple of other short stories that came out after the movie, and there was a good comic book adaptation as well. So we'll be discussing it in all its forms and its very strong influence on the Fallout series. All right, now we're going to start a new segment, which is going to be mod discussion. You may have noticed last week the video we were running behind the commentary was a strange and mysterious new take on New Vegas. So, Austin, tell us a little bit about where that footage came from.
Yes, that footage came from, it was actually triggered by a conversation that we had earlier in a couple to a few episodes ago about, that were just briefly mentioned mods for Fallout New Vegas that changed the way survival worked, and this one is a really major overhaul of Fallout New Vegas, and it's called Fallout Dust, and it is basically a fan fiction made by a modder who it's set 20 years after the events of Fallout New Vegas, and the dust storms from the Sierra Madre that cloud has swept through the Vegas area. Tunnelers from the Divide have invaded as well. Lake Mead is drained, and everything is really, really bad, and everyone has evacuated, and the few that remain, including the NCR, are basically savage buttholes. And resources are incredibly scarce, and damage has been rebalanced so that everything hurts you more, and by conversely you hurt other people more, and there are fun little makeshift weapons in there, and you get thirsty and hungry more frequently, and there's less food and less medicine, so and it takes a lot of the sense of humor from Fallout out. So if you're prone to depression, I don't recommend you play it alone, or you talk to your doctor about possibly modifying your medication, because it is a little bit of a drain on the soul. It's kind of like, it has a similar atmosphere to Fallout 3, but actually way more depressing. And it's a lot of fun if you like depressing.
Yeah, it's a challenge to play. It's not one of those make the game incredibly hard mods. It has its challenge, and you have to alter your style of play to match what the game requires. Like Austin said, ammunition and supplies are all very scarce, so you do have to sneak around and avoid fights and pick when you're going to fight and who you really think you can take down with the 8 rounds in your gun. You actually start out with 2 rounds in your gun. So this reminds me a lot of the Undead Nightmare DLC pack for Red Dead Redemption, where it's still the same world, but it's been drastically changed by the arrival of a persistent hostility all over the world. So if you enjoyed that take on Red Dead Redemption, you'll probably enjoy this take on Fallout New Vegas.
And if you actually want to check out Dust without having to go through the burden of trying to play it yourself and die over and over, or if you just simply do not have a PC that with Fallout New Vegas on it, or it cannot handle the mods or whatever reason, or you just want to watch me die over and over again, you can check out a live stream that Charles and I are doing every Monday on twitch.tv/shoddycast. And it is not a family-friendly show. It is not a safe-for-work show. I do swear quite a bit. I know that may surprise you, but I get a little surprised whenever I get blown up, but for the 5th time by an errant grenade or mine. So you should check it out if you have nothing to do on Mondays at 2 p.m. Central or 1900 GMT.
And then last week when we were talking about vehicle mods for Fallout New Vegas, a lot of people screamed, "Play XRE, dumbass." So yeah, that was like the top comment on last week's podcast. It's XRE, you jackass. Do you even play the game? So I did actually play XRE this weekend. So for next week's mod showcase, we're going to talk about XRE specifically and how it is actually different from a lot of the older vehicle mods that you might have seen for Fallout 3 when it first came out or New Vegas when it first came out. And to parallel with that, we're going to do another new segment next week that's called Games That Are Kinda Like Fallout. We're going to start by looking at Rage, which is kinda like Fallout but with vehicles. And we'll look at how the XRE mod adds in vehicles and how Rage added in vehicles to their post-apocalyptic world. And now it's time for an important public service announcement. So those of you who are going out into the wasteland, make sure to keep your Geiger counters close and heed these words.
Three Dog here. How's everyone doing? Up next, we've got a public service announcement. Listen up, children. This stuff's important.
Hi, kids. I'm here today with an important public service announcement. Being a ghoul has lots of advantages, like living for hundreds of years and being immune to radiation. But life as a ghoul ain't for everyone. So, if you're still a smooth skin and you want to stay that way, keep an eye on your Geiger counter when you're outside, and always use Rad-X before scavenging near radioactive materials. If you begin to experience nausea, dry eyes, or spontaneous hair loss, then go inside immediately and inject yourself with Radway. And don't forget to tune in to Galaxy News Radio for adventures of me, Argyle, and my smooth-skinned pal, Herbert Barry Bashwood. New episodes every other Friday, only on GNR.
And welcome back. Now it's time for a segment we call Viewer Questions. So 9/11 Child on YouTube commented, "I must be the only Fallout fan who never seen nor plans on seeing Mad Max." Now first, this isn't a question. Secondly, yes, 9/11 Child, you're right. You are the only Fallout fan that never saw or plans to see Mad Max.
Oh, you need to at least see Fury Road. It's so good.
The 9/11 Child needs to see all of them in chronological order, starting with Mad Max.
I will say he can skip the first one if he wants to. Just
Oh
just
no,
saying.
that was the best
Oh,
one.
what? No. The first half of Beyond Thunderdome is the best one. Well, best half.
Before like the Peter Pan stuff kicks in.
Walk up. Before that, yeah.
All right, so when people play Fallout and haven't seen Mad Max, I mean, it's like, Brian Fargo, who was the head of Interplay that made the first Fallout game. He is a massive Mad Max fan, and when people play this game and say they've never seen Mad Max, it makes Brian Fargo cry. And you, 9/11 Child, you've got to see these movies. Just you see, one day, 9/11 Child, you're going to be reading some other kid saying, "I never watched Mad Max," because after you've seen him, you're going to be like, that idiot, how could he not have played Mad Max? So those of you who do like Fallout, yeah, Mad Max, it's got to be at the top of your list of movies to catch, and all 4 movies in the series are terrific. I think they're best watched in chronological order. Mad Max fans will disagree on what order to watch or whether you should skip Thunderdome entirely or skip the first one entirely, but definitely sit down and watch them. And the precise point at which you should turn off Thunderdome, thoughts on that?
When he gets sent out with the big head on him and he's on the horse with one water bottle or something.
Okay, the gulag.
That's the end of the movie.
After the wheel.
As far as Kyle's concerned. He turns it off. He's like, "That was a good movie. Nothing really stupid happened. It was a movie made in the '80s, and nothing overly weirdly '80s happened yet. That's good. It was good. No feral children. That was my favorite part."
Oh, well, that actually brings up our first irresponsible speculation. Sol Ryu, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Sol Ryu writes, "Irresponsible speculation. Do you think you'll be able to buy voice DLC packs? One of which being a porn star voice pack." So this gets into it. if you want to have, sexy or wacky dialogue, and Bethesda doesn't want to record this, you can pay a fee and you could get, the sexy voice. You could get, a dumb guy special voice if you drop your intelligent below 3 and you buy the DLC pack, then you can get, it's good to be back. Come on, boy, let's go. Or you can just get the zany pack. So what do you guys think about this? It's not such an irresponsible speculation.
I guess not, no.
Yeah, it's not super irresponsible.
And potentially, since, they'll have basically... It'll be easy to just get all the voice packs that are already in the game, so someone could just revoice all of them for, the main character, and then do it as, a mod or something. So, I don't know, to see it as a DLC... If it becomes a mod first and they see that it's successful, maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe we can make a little extra money by doing something like this.
All right, so Zorba R on YouTube comments, what if the British invaded in Fallout 4? Revolutionary theme is present in the game. So last week we talked about the possibility of transcontinental travel, so what do you guys think of this? Irresponsible speculation or a great third act?
I don't think that would be the actual main plot of the game, but that would be an amazing DLC.
The British are coming again.
That'd be so good. because then I've always kind of thought of England just sitting there, they're drinking tea and having crumpets. We're like, man, they're having a tough time in America. Do you want to just go try to take them over just for funsies? We've got actual industry here. We could do it, I think.
All right, so now it's time for our irresponsible speculations. Now, I have one that's kind of responsible and one that's horribly irresponsible. So I'll start with the horribly irresponsible one, and then we'll try to end the podcast on actual responsible, productive contribution to society. So my irresponsible speculation is a new achievement called Petophile.
Oh, God. Jesus.
You will get this if you successfully romance dog meat. And now for all the people that are outraged about it, that, you get the achievement because it'll be...
Oh, my.
So your irresponsible speculations.
My speculation of the irresponsible persuasion would be, settlements, having to do with settlements. So, you can build up the town, we all know that, and you can, make a bunch of different buildings and whatnot, however you want. But then I also think that wanderers would eventually come to you with, business propositions where you can then choose which ones you like, and that would make money for you potentially, or just blow up in your face and you'd lose a bunch of money. Or, a bunch of rowdy people will blow up the building and you have to start from scratch or something like that, especially if they're making, Jet or something. But, yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing, and it's definitely going to be in the game.
All right, so I'd like to close the podcast with a relatively responsible speculation. And now we are kind of Oh, okay. Well, it's just, this is, I like to joke that irresponsible speculations, we're screwing with the lives of real people and real businesses. And, there's a lot on the line when we mess with a large company in a small state and the hundreds of people that work there. But the woman that owns the real dog that dog meat is based on. Now, the dog is named River. I won't say the woman's name because she's probably inundated with nerds that want to meet her dog. But if you stalk her, on her Twitter feed, she says that she quit Bethesda to go work for a company called Jamberry. And Jamberry makes fancy nail wraps. And nail wraps are kind of, it's like a false fingernail that fits on top of your real nail that's got a fancy pattern on it. And now I speculate that Jamberry is going to make an officially licensed set of Fallout-themed nail wraps. And you may say I'm crazy for this, but earlier this year, the developers behind Borderlands made an officially licensed set of Borderlands nail wraps that really exist. I've worn them myself. They're cool. They're not made by Jamberry. But here's the deal about Jamberry. If you go to their website and look at the videos on how to apply their nail wraps, Jamberries have to be applied with this little heater. So you hold your nails up to this little heating device and it seals the wrap onto your fingernails for, weeks at a time. And so with this special heater, I'm thinking that fits in with Fallout's, retro futuristic mentality of, ladies, get the manicure of tomorrow, fused to your fingers with atomic energy. And just, that they can just make a heater that's got the Vault-Tec or Robco logo and with the Fallout-themed images on them. And if this isn't already happening, I'd just like to say, if someone at Bethesda is listening, you've already got an in at Jamberry. I suggest your merchandising department, talk to their marketing people and, get a kind of handshake deal here, because if your two companies don't do this, somebody else on Etsy is going to make the Wasteland Pop Girl nail wraps, and the consumer will lose out if it's not an official product. So what do you guys think? Am I insane with this, or is this something that could really happen?
No, go for it. I don't see why not. Like you said, they already have an in. And it's money. It's not like they would lose money on the deal. I'm sure people would buy it.
Merchandising.
Vault
Boy the nail salon. Vault Boy the hair gel. Vault Boy the
flamethrower. Wait, sorry.
All right, so on that, this has been GNN, brought to you by Shoddycast. Don't forget to tune in every Friday for a new episode of The Storyteller. And Kyle, what do you have coming up on the Shoddycast channel?
Elder Scrolls lore is so close to being out. Like, so close. Like, basically, we already have a rough cut of episode 1. I've seen it already. There's some tweaks we want to do, so it needs some editing done to it. We still have a few things we need to do, like an outro. We're still kind of debating the intro, that kind of stuff. But yes, and I even made a thumbnail the other day, so like, it's close, very close.
Okay, and can you give people a hint on when it's coming?
I really wish I could, but you can pretty much guarantee that it's coming out next month.
Okay, and in the meantime, you have Fallout Lore the Storyteller, Hidden History, and don't forget, every weekday after school, Giddy Up Buttercup and the Pony Pals. This week, we have a special episode brought to you by the Giddy Up Buttercup and the Pony Pals Magic Pony Nail Salon. So it's going to be a terrific episode where Buttercup and all the little ponies get their hooves done, and Jamberry and Bethesda will be making an actual hoof manicure set that you can purchase about the time the episode airs. So tune in next week.